Suspense.
This happened last year as well when we did one of these episodes where we were on a delay and my side of the audio, the camera was sticking. So I'm praying and hoping that this is going to be smooth because I won't know when to interrupt.
You're as smooth as butter here for me.
I've been moisturising.
Well, it's working, Kevin. That's all what I'm going to say to you. It's working. We were just discussing on mic. Kevin got me this wonderful, I'm wearing it right now, this wonderful, subtle hoodie from Last Exit to Nowhere, which it's not
it's a mesh top.
We're not even
mesh.
Sponsored by him, but it's got a logo on it. So the logo says "Farewell, unadieu to you, Spanish ladies," and it's from Last Exit to Nowhere, and it's really cozy. It's a really cozy hoodie. So thank you for this gift, Kevin. I love it.
You got me one of those last year, I think it was. You got me one from the Thing, and I loved it. I wore it constantly, and I thought, I'll get him one of those things. Anyway, we're here not to talk about our clothing, but to talk about our favourite films of the year. And I have to tell you, Will, I have been chopping and changing my list. My top 5 are pretty much locked in. I know what they're going to be, and I'm very happy with that top 5. My bottom 5, well, the top 15, I keep chopping and changing and moving them about and thinking, oh no. And then clicking through Letterboxd and seeing what mates of mine have rated films and thinking, oh God, they only thought that was a 3-star film. Maybe I'll just bump that down to 11.
Right.
Peer pressure.
Yeah, you start getting self-conscious when you start looking at, I was desperately trying to watch the films I needed to watch. So I was looking at all the different websites out there, Letterboxd and Rotten Tomatoes, and what's the other one you always bring up? Oh, shit. Oh, we lost Kevin. There you are.
Hang in there, baby. Help is on the way. You know what I did? While you were talking, I remembered that I have the YouTube Crackling Fire page going. So it's this lovely, cozy, crackly ASMR sound. And while you were talking, I was thinking, what is going on in the background? Oh yeah, I've still got the YouTube thing playing. And maybe that's why my camera is sticking. So I went to turn that off and instead I hung up on you. Anyway, what were you saying?
God bless you. Well, what I was saying was that I've been trying to desperately find the films I needed to watch to kind of have as complete a list as possible. And I threw in a joke there, but you jumped out. My joke was I went to all the regular sources that you go to when you're trying to get these lists, like Letterboxd, Rotten Tomatoes, and Pornhub. And I have been desperately trying to fill in the gaps. And the worst thing about it is no matter how many films you watch, there's always at least another 3 that you think, oh, I should have watched that. I should have watched that. And that's where I'm at.
Well, I've not seen Nosferatu or A Complete Unknown, so I don't know where they would rank on my list. And
right.
Yeah, it's been a pretty good year though, I think. Like if I've got 20 films where I think those are a good, strong 20, that's been a good year.
Yeah, it's like I'm looking at my top 20 and I'm saying, there was a good solid chunk of good films. My problem was that I didn't have that one film that I went, that's my fucking favorite film of the year. That's it. So I was chopping and changing.
Oh, I know what mine is. Mine has not changed at all.
Okay.
So yeah, my number 1 has been my number 1 from the time I saw it.
Okay. I am interested. I'm and
Good.
I'm curious. I'm right now, you see, as we're talking, I'm looking at my number 10 because I know we're about to start and I'm thinking of swapping out my number 10.
Okay.
I'm actually thinking of, God.
The way that we usually do this is if we both have a film on the list, we will save it until we reach the highest ranking and then we'll talk about it. And we just pass it back and forth. Do you want to go first or will I go first? Am I going to influence you if I go first?
No, I want you to go first because I think I am going to change out my number 10. And I want to hear what your number 10 is.
Yeah. Oh, shit. Okay. All right. My number 10, Will, is a film that I don't think I can recommend to anybody because they're not going to enjoy it. But for me, it was enchanting. It was enriching. It was beautiful. It was exactly what I wanted in the moment. I just told you there that I hung up on you because I was listening to an ASMR fire crackling video, which I've had on almost all over Christmas. I absolutely love it. And I am an absolute terror for ASMR. I love all the little sounds that they make.
Whisper, 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 whisper.
Yeah. I especially love like Japanese whispering. If I can't understand what they're saying, I love it. And some people find that stuff nightmare fuel. It terrorizes them. But for me, it's like, oh, I just love listening to a Japanese woman flicking through a magazine. It's very fucking relaxing. And for me, this film played quite similarly to that. And it's by a first-time filmmaker, but she's a very well-respected playwright. I don't know any of her plays, but her name is Julia Nicholson, and the film was called Janet Planet. Have you seen it?
No. I remember you discussing this on a mini bits. I remember seeing it on my Oscar screeners along with another one, and I said, I must get to that, and I never got to it. God damn it. Right. Tell me about Janet Planet. Why is it on your list? Tell me why, Kevin.
So the story is set in rural Western Massachusetts in the 90s. It follows an 11-year-old called Lacey who spends her summer at home with her single mother, and that is the be-all and end-all of it. It's an observational film over this August summer, and it's very chill. It's all about the moments that you wouldn't see in other films that would get cut out, that would be extracted because there's not much drama, there's not much conflict. The reason why I can't recommend it to others is because they might be bored out of their tree watching it. Miyazaki has that thing called Ma, which he loves, these interstitial moments, these moments of inhabiting a world that can be like a babbling brook and somebody just like strolling through a field or whatever. And this is almost entirely made up of that. It's these moments that feel like an 11-year-old's memory. So you're flashing back to that time and just remembering these little moments. You meet a girl at a bus stop and you're waiting for the bus to come along, and the cicadas are chirping and you can feel the heat in the air, and there's not much going on. There's no phones to distract you. There's no real drama in your life. So you're making idle small talk, and that's pretty much it. And it's beautiful. It's such a chill film that is unlike anything else I'm going to have in my top 10 list, and pretty much unlike anything else I think that came out in 2024. So for its unique individual aesthetic, and for how much I just took to it, and how much I just luxuriated in it, how relaxing it was, how beautiful it was, how observed it was. These moments of tenderness and gentleness between characters that they don't really lead to anything. It doesn't really blow up in anybody's faces. But it's a lovely film. It's really, really special. I don't know how well others would take to this like I did.
Yeah.
But I loved it.
Can I hold your hand?
It's kind of hard for me to fall asleep when we're holding hands.
How about for a minute? You know what's funny?
What?
Every moment of my life is hell.
You actually seem very happy to me a lot of the time.
It's hell. I don't think it'll last, though.
I'm actually pretty unhappy, too.
If you go down to Hammer,
Wayne has a migraine.
You had a headache yesterday.
you'll never come back.
He thinks maybe I transferred it to him.
In my opinion, you're
So what do you do for fun, Lacey?
on the wrong track.
Wouldn't you rather be hanging out with your friends?
I don't have any friends.
Why?
I don't know. It's a complete mystery to me.
You're a beautiful person, Janet. But objectively, you do make bad decisions. Well, who knows? Well, you know.
I've always had this knowledge that I could make any man fall in love with me if I really tried. And I think maybe it's ruined my life.
Can you stop?
Stop what?
Stop trying.
Dude, I've got films on my list as well, which kind of are in the same kind of category, where I think I'm the only person who liked this as much as I liked it. And that's totally fine. You know, all my list is made of these films. So will I tell you my number 10? Because I guarantee you my number 10 is not on your list, and it's just gone into my number 10 right now.
Okay, go for it.
My number 10 is probably not on anyone's top 10 of the year list, but it's a film that I watched on the plane and I fucking loved it. And it's Wicked Little Letters, the film with Olivia Colman and the Irish actress Jessie Buckley.
Oh, I remember you telling me about this on Mini Bits as well.
Yeah, it was a hoot. It has the quaintness of one of those lazy, quiet Sunday afternoon Midsummer Murders, Agatha Christie type stories, but laced into it, we have profanity, and it's one of those films that had me laughing out loud several times because of that shock to the system, where it feels like no one should swear in this universe, but the swearing is so inventive, and it's like a bomb going off whenever one of these letters are read out. And it is an explosion. Each one of these are little mini bombs in a small little community. For those of you who don't know, Wicked Little Letters is based on a true story of a kind of a shocking event, a comparatively shocking event that happened in a small community in England, where all of a sudden people in the community started receiving these poison pen letters from an unknown source, and they all believe that the Irish girl played by Jessie Buckley, she's the culprit, but she's also receiving the letters and she's innocent. I just thoroughly enjoyed this, and I thought Jessie Buckley is one of those rising stars who's been known for her dramatic work, but she's got a fantastic comedic bone in her body. You know, she really plays the comedy really well here. And her opposite, the kind of the uptight Olivia Colman, who is her foil, her counterpart in this, is they bounce off each other. They're like chalk and cheese, but in the right sort of way, to make this it was one of those films that I came away recommending it to you and to everyone else. I said, Jesus, Wicked Little Letters, so much fun. It's not setting out to be a bigger film. It's not. I don't think it was ever setting out to be a big Oscar baity film or anything like that. But my God, what it set out to do, which was to be a really entertaining, curious little romp that made you laugh, that kind of hooked you and had a little kind of a mystery to it. It worked. It totally worked for me. And the fact that it's a true story makes it even better, because there are several twists and turns in this. And I was kind of shocked at the end that it's like, how did I not hear of this story before? So I'm just recommending it again. I'm using this opportunity to signal boost Wicked Little Letters, and that's my number 10.
The mystery of the obscene little Hampton letter is causing widespread distress across the nation.
Holy heavens. Carry on. Dear Edith, you foxy ass old whore.
In the end, I think it's just jealousy.
Do you feel certain Rose Gooding's guilty?
I can't see why they think it's me. Some on the verge of making history here. I was a bit roisterous once or twice.
This time you owned up to these letters.
Rose Gooding, who allegedly harassed a pretty young Christian woman.
What's the evidence?
Similarities in the language.
I think you've been set up, Rose. Is there anyone who'd want to do such a thing?
You got a pen and paper?
I like you, Rose, and I'd like to bring you to the light.
Why would I send a letter when I can just say it?
I'm not standing for it.
We'll catch them in the act.
I noticed they say foxy ass a lot. Nobody swears like that.
What would you say?
You look like Queen Victoria shoved up her. You daft old...
Yeah, I do love a good sweary movie, so I'm sure that would tickle my bits as well. Okay, my number 9 then. Right, here we go.
Yeah.
This is a complete change of pace now from number 10.
Okay.
This one is harrowing. It's a BBC documentary It came out in the summertime, and it's called Hell Jumper.
I've not even heard of this. What is it?
I think I spoke about it on a mini bits with you, but it's directed by Paddy Wivel. It follows, well, I'll give you the synopsis. So, courage, love, and loss. Young people risk their lives with self-funded missions to rescue families in Ukraine's frontline towns, told through their own words and unique first-person footage. And it's the first-person footage which is the harrowing part, because you are dropped into the middle of a war zone where these volunteers are going on deadly rescue missions to save people who are trapped behind the enemy lines, or behind the increasing Russian offensive. And it's almost like Children of Men in sort of immediacy and that sense of jeopardy and danger. But when you know it's played for real, and you know that some of these people didn't make it out alive, and we're in a weird place with war zones and events like that nowadays, because everybody has a camera on them, and these guys were able to document their final moments. And when they're encountering these elderly people who have been left behind and they can't get out, and they're trying to take all their belongings that they possibly can to get into a van and be driven under military fire and under, bombs being dropped. The humanity, the bravery, the selflessness, the sort of the capacity for good that some people possess, I found it really deeply moving. And to see these pitiful and helpless elderly women like kissing the hands of these young British guys who've gone there and saying, my little dove, it tore the heart out of me. And then you're cutting to interviews with family members and ex-partners, and they're coming to terms with a very recent loss. I found it incredibly moving, and without wanting to trivialize it, really exciting, because you're seeing stuff that you've never seen before. And so when somebody is walking into a bombed out street and there's gunfire coming at them and they are shitting themselves, like the test of true courage is the fact that you're scared and you'll still do it. And these guys are scared and they're still making those desperate runs right across open war zones to try and help somebody who, if they don't, they're going to be left there to die. It brings it all home, and it's an incredibly powerful documentary, and one that I had to include. So I don't know how many people have seen it. When I look at my Letterboxd list, not many of my friends have seen it, but I thought it was incredible, and I would recommend for you anyway, definitely to watch it.
Evacuati! Get on here.
I just have to go out there and help. I can't just stand by and let this happen without at least trying to help.
Are we crazy here that we're going into a war zone where everybody else is trying to leave?
I wanted to do something.
I started getting messages. Can you get some ground morale?
It's kind of hard to care about whatever, going for a bike ride, when I know that people are getting killed right now.
It's not the danger, it's not the adrenaline, it's being closer to the people who need us.
Be willing to drive, be willing to die. That's Chris's car.
When you're in love, you just want to think that there is future.
2 British men who were working as volunteers in Ukraine are missing.
He was nothing but extraordinary.
I do recall, talking about it, was the title that didn't stick in my head. For some reason, I'm surprised that it hasn't appeared in the Oscar screeners, because it's one of those ones that seems that maybe next year, maybe it'll qualify for next year's thingy. But
maybe it's because it screened on the BBC. I don't know if it's disqualified for that reason, if it didn't have a cinema run, first of all.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. But it sounds like it's something that's right up my alley. Because I watched that one last year, which devastated me. The 10 days in Mariupol, which was just horrific, documented those first 10 days of the invasion. And I was in bits. I was absolutely in bits watching it. It was the most harrowing thing. I watched that last year. So I think I needed a distance to recuperate. But I will watch that one. Definitely, 100%.
So what's your number 9?
My number 9 is Dune Part 2.
Okay.
didn't think it was as good as Dune. Did you? Is it on your list?
It's not on my list. And the reason it's not on my list is I thought that was an excellent, excellent film. I absolutely loved it in the cinema. It was everything I wanted for a sequel to Dune. But it is a sequel, and I can't really remember too much of it, no? Like 7 months on. So I thought, maybe recency bias is playing a factor here, but also I kind of said all I needed to say about that film. And there are probably other ones that I can highlight a bit better. So I really loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars on Letterboxd, but it's number 12 for me.
I thought it was a very good film. I think I preferred the first film more than Dune Part 2. I actually recently rewatched both films on a flight back recently from wherever I was. And what I loved about Dune is the audacity to pull off a sci-fi spectacle that's for grown-ups and on this scale, and do it with such slickness and artistry. I found it just really compelling to watch a film like that on the big screen. Okay, there are things about the plot that maybe feel a little bit rushed in Paul's kind of transition and Paul's development, which seemed like it happened, over a couple of days or whatever it is. But there are moments in that film which stand out in my mind as some of the best sequences of the year in cinema for the year. The opening action scene where they're ambushed by these Harkonnen warriors who kind of float in. Paul and his mom and the other Fremen are fleeing across the dunes, and there's an assault team of Harkonnens that descend on them, and it is an astounding scene where we see, it's just the way it's framed, the way it's executed is just masterful. Ultimately, what I loved, the film brought me around at the end because I was kind of tracking Paul's journey, and I went, hang on a second, it feels like he's taking the bad choices. He's going down the dark paths. It feels like he's going there. And ultimately, the last few minutes of the film, which reframed it from Zendaya's point of view, made it a tragedy and made it a really poignant tragedy, because when I watched it a second time, I realized, that's, Paul is making a really terrible sacrifice in this, knowingly doing it.
Had you read the books?
Years and years ago. But I'd seen David Lynch's film. David Lynch's film was more in my head than the books were, really, to be honest with you. I never recall it being framed in such a way before. Like, the
downfall,
framing from the point
or
of
the moral
Zendaya's character.
downfall of Paul Atreides.
Yeah.
It's a bit like Anakin Skywalker. In fact, I remember that was the thing that I brought up to you on our mini bits was, it was like, Jesus Christ, Star Wars lifted wholesale from Dune. Like, there's so much of the iconography of Star Wars, which you can draw a direct comparison to Dune. That stood out to me. But yeah, good film. Great film.
It's a great film. It was, in a year where the blockbuster spectacles did not impress me, this was a blockbuster spectacle which made a lot of money, and I'm glad it made a lot of money because I want to see the next one. And when I watched it in the cinema, I went, this is the type of film I want to see in the cinema. I want to see big budget, mature science fiction, told with confidence, and and the score again. Oh, look, Hans Zimmer's score was half of why I loved it as well. I have listened to it many, many times throughout the year, along with the previous one. So, Dune Part 2 for me is my number 9.
Do you know why I killed your father?
Consider what you're about to do, Paul Atreides.
Silence!
What about your number 8, Kevin?
My number 8, I'm wondering whether this will be on your list, but my number 8 is Conclave.
Kevin?
Yes.
It's also my number 8.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Finally,
so
we're
take
in
it
sync.
away.
Conclave is directed by Edward Berger. We just spoke about it quite recently on Minibits 87. After the unexpected death of the Pope, Cardinal Lawrence, played by Ralph Fiennes, is tasked with managing the covert and ancient ritual of electing a new Pope, sequestered in the Vatican with the Catholic Church's most powerful leaders. Until the process is complete, Lawrence finds himself at the centre of a conspiracy that could lead to its downfall. I love this film. I said to you on that Minibits that it was a yarn. It was an adult-centric story. It was confidently told. It took me behind the curtain of a world that I was curious about, but I never really knew much about. I love when films do that, when they are able to transport you to a different time and place, and you get to peek behind the curtain, as it were. The reason it's not higher on my list is because there are moments where it kind of slips into a Dan Brown type mystery.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the moments where I thought this is getting a little too melodramatic here. Pull it back. But I loved it. I thought it was surprising, elegant, sophisticated, very contemporary for a film that is all about the pageantry and the sort of the old traditions of the Catholic Church. It felt very modern, and I thought it was a cracking suspense film.
Great cast as well. Ralph Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, John Lithgow, Isabella Rossellini, just a few of the headline actors who all really relish in their roles. And they all have very, very good, clear characters. Like Ralph Fiennes, as you described before, is this cardinal who is basically the manager of all of this. He's the guy who's making sure everything is running the way it should and whatnot, and is having a bit of a crisis of faith in when we find him, or we learn that he is definitely having some sort of crisis of faith. But all of the other players in the story all have very, very distinct and opposing points of view of what the church should be and how it should go forward. And I'm the same as you. I was riveted. I was just riveted. I thought it was cinematic because, look, let's face it, the Catholic Church does theatrics and pageantry incredibly well, and titillating in the sense that, like, you looking behind the curtain to see this mysterious thing. Because I actually remember when Pope John Paul died. I remember Karen's mother was in hospital, but on the TV in the ward was the feed from the Vatican, and seeing, you'd see the smoke going up the chimney and stuff like that. And there was this mystery about, like, what's happening behind these closed doors. And this film gives us at least some impression of what it may be like. And it's great. It was really, really good. So it's a solid number 8 for me, and I'm recommending it to everyone. I think everyone would enjoy this film.
The Pope is dead. The throne is vacant.
The conclave begins now. We're about to choose the most famous man in the world.
And 1.25 billion souls watching.
I'd say this is a pretty fair vision of hell.
Well, don't be blasphemous, Ray. Hell arrives tomorrow when we bring in the cardinals.
No sane man would want the papacy.
Some of our colleagues seem to want it.
Although we sisters are supposed to be invisible, God has nevertheless given us eyes and ears.
What did you discuss with the Holy Father in that final meeting?
The arrangements were made in Paris.
I shall pretend this conversation never took place.
But it has taken place. This is a conclave. It's not a war.
It is a war. And you have to commit to a side.
Why did the Holy Father, in his last official act as Pope, choose me to run this conclave?
The reasons would become clear soon enough.
Really good film.
Goes back to you, Kevin, for your number 7. So what's your number 7?
My number 7 is a film that you just recommended to me on the very last mini bits. I didn't think I would take to it, and I'd heard some conflicting things about it, which I don't agree with any of my friends' opinion on it. But it's Small Things Like These.
Okay, that is on my list. It's a little bit higher up, so maybe we'll wait until we get to that and we can discuss it then. All right? And I have a feeling...
Oh, this is exciting.
that my number 7 is going to be on your list as well. My number 7 is Anora. Is it on your list?
Yeah, Anora is on my list, definitely.
Okay. So I'm going to
skip ahead again.
Yeah. What's your number 6?
My number 6 is definitely not on your list, and I doubt it's on many people's lists, but I had a cracking time with this film, and I didn't expect to enjoy it at all, because I am allergic to this man's films for the most part. And yet, I went to the cinema, I laughed heartily. It was a complete delight, and it felt like the conclusion to the entire genre, which I keep saying an awful lot about these kind of films, but I don't know, they seem to be in a race to bottom out. And maybe I'm just projecting onto these films where it's like, okay, wrap it up now. Okay, you've done it. No, okay, stop. That's enough. But
right.
This one definitely felt like that, and it was Deadpool and Wolverine.
Ah, wow. Okay. Very good. Very good. Yeah. I
Where's
see
that
where
on
you're
your list?
when you. It's not on my list. No, it's not on my list.
Top 20?
And is it? Actually, that's a good question. It's not in my. No, it is. No, it's not. It's 25. I have it at 25 at the moment.
Okay. All right. So I thought it was very funny. I thought it was very surprising. It did a lot of things where I was just impressed with the writing. It's a very shticky film. Like, it's Deadpool being full on Deadpool. This was just great crack. And there were scenes in it that you wouldn't think would jump out at me, but I was in a space of trying to crack a script that I was writing, and I can doff my cap when I see really slick, well-constructed scene work. It bubbles along, and it's very sharp, clever writing. And I remember watching a scene between Jon Favreau and Ryan Reynolds, where Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool character wants to join the Avengers. So he's meeting Tony Stark's Happy Hogan, and he is telling him, you're not a good fit for this. You're never going to be a good fit for this. You do your own thing and all that kind of stuff. And it was just a really well-constructed scene. And I thought, yeah, this is very sharply written. It continued to surprise me. It continued to be a proper lark. And for the kind of film that it is, I got my money's worth. I laughed heartily. I enjoyed the action sequences. They were over the top and extreme. And bringing Hugh Jackman into the film was something that I think was needed. It balanced out Deadpool because you had a guy who couldn't stand him, who was teamed up with him. And whenever you've got that odd couple energy, I tend to enjoy it a lot more. So
yeah,
it was great crack for me and probably the most entertaining blockbuster of the year.
And I totally agree with you in what you said, that it feels like this should be the end of that genre now. They should park it now for a while, because it feels like like the opening scene of Deadpool resurrecting Wolverine.
Very funny.
It feels like it's
very, very funny, though.
It
Just
feels
desecrating
like we're really
his grave.
Yeah, but it feels like we're doing that. It feels like the genre has done that now. We've dug up these dead horses and we're flogging them. This wasn't entertaining. Look, I was entertained by the film. It just didn't stick with me. It's one of those films that I felt once I walked out of the cinema, it kind of evaporated from my consciousness. But I did have a fun time while I was watching it. I laughed several times. So no, it's been very, very successful. So we're going to continue to get more.
The scene where Blade is reintroduced and Deadpool says, "I thought you were retarded." Blade goes, "Retarded?" I laughed for a good solid 30 seconds after that stupid line was uttered. And, stupid humor is my favorite kind of humor. So I was all in for that film.
One of the gags that they must have discussed, but I'm shocked that they didn't address it. Because Deadpool is so meta, like it even, there was a moment in a previous Deadpool where Deadpool goes back to a previous version of Ryan Reynolds who's reading the script for Green Lantern and shoots him in the head. The fact that Ryan Reynolds appears in Blade Trinity with Blade was not addressed. It's like, come here, there's an open goal there for another gag there for
That might have gotten too confusing though. It gets too inside itself. But I thought they rode the line quite well. The funny thing was they were digging up all these kind of shite films and lampooning them and saying, let's give a lecture home moment. Let's give Chris Evans's Johnny Storm his moment. I thought it was very funny, really enjoyable.
Yeah, that was the aspect of it I really enjoyed as well.
If it was a comic, I would have loved it,
Yeah, that's really cool.
Thanks, Will.
I don't know anything about saving worlds, but you do.
Trust me, kid, I'm no hero. You were an X-Man. You were the X-Man. I am soaking wet right now.
Boys are so silly.
This is what I'm talking about. Big slow motion action sequence. Who knows if you live or die? Let's fucking go.
Let's fucking go.
Want to do some cocaine?
Hey, cocaine is the one thing that Feige said is off limits.
What about Bolivian marching powder?
They know all the slang terms. They have a list.
Even snowboarding?
Even disco dust.
White girl interrupted?
Even forest bump.
Do you want to build a snowman?
Yes! But I can't.
I'm curious if my number 6 is on your list.
So am I.
My number 6 is the animated film Flow. Is that on your list? Flow.
Yes, that's on my list.
Okay, so I'm going to throw it back to you again for your number 5. What is your number 5, Kevin?
My number 5, I know you've seen the film. I don't know where it ranks, but there were a few films in 2024 where they kind of fill the same space and they scratched the same spot for me. And one of those films was Rebel Ridge, which I really enjoyed. I thought it was a cracking film and one of the better films to come out of Netflix. But the one that I enjoyed even more, and it's quite a recent watch for me, is from Justin Kurzel, and it's The Order.
Kevin, guess what? My number 5
Yes.
is The Order. How great is this?
So I said to you, my top 5 were immutable. I'm really, really happy with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're in the right space so far. I love The Order. What did you think of it?
I thought it was great. I thought it was like I thought it was like an old school, hard boiled detective story, a really compelling cat and mouse caper, not a caper, but a thriller is what it was. And also the fact that it's based on true events is kind of chilling. So to give you a little bit of a context of what this is, it stars Jude Law and Nicholas Hoult, Ty Sheridan,
and Alison Oliver from Cork.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. Oh, fantastic. Well done, up Cork. So this is basically after a story that's set after a string of robberies have hit the kind of the Pacific Northwest. Some FBI agents go on the hunt, tracking down these domestic terrorists who are following a particular book.
Clan members.
They're clan members, but they're kind of an offshoot. They're like a subset who are following a particular book, which is the Hunter Diaries or something like the Tracker Diaries or something like that, which is basically like a step-by-step plan on how to bring white nationalism global almost, you know. Performances, fantastic. Jude Law he didn't look handsome, Jude Law. He looked like this gnarled, I think his character's name is Husk. Am I right in saying he's Tony Husk? And he is like this husk of a man who is so beaten down by this world that he's existed in. And he's chasing Nicholas Hoult, who's the leader of the Order, who's, what's his name? Robert Matthews, I think his name was. And Nicholas Hoult was utterly compelling because he's very, very handsome. He's very, very charismatic. And he carries this kind of cold, dead steeliness in his eyes where you know he is going to follow this mission right to the end. And that kind of sense of determination and sense of coldness and focus is chilling, particularly when he comes, and I think it's Nicholas Holt's best performance. Like, I think Nicholas Hoult has had this amazing year. I was absolutely gripped. I thought it was painterly. I thought it was really beautifully shot. There's some landscape cinematography going on here, which kind of made me goggle and go, wow, that's beautiful. But also some of the moving car cinematography was very impressive. They stuck the camera in places that I hadn't really seen stuck on a car before. I was gripped by this film right to the end. I thought it was fantastic. So yeah, the ending felt a little bit anticlimactic, but the fact that it's based on true events, it's kind of one of those things of how do you end this in any other way?
Yeah, I thought Jude Law was fantastic in this. He reminded me of Robert Shaw from Jaws. He has that same sort of simmering cynicism.
Yeah.
And there's a lovely dynamic between himself and Ty Sheridan, who's this younger cop who has a family, and he's somebody who he shouldn't get tangled up in this case. And Jude Law is aware of that, yet he needs this kid in order to fulfill his mission. And I love the dynamic between the two of them. There's a great scene where Jude Law is at the barbecue of Ty Sheridan, and he has a quiet moment with Ty Sheridan's wife, and she basically tells him that you scare me. And it's such an exposing moment, because she knows that this guy is bad news for her family. She doesn't want him in the house. She doesn't want to turn him away. She just feels very conflicted about it, but she's got his number and he knows that as well. And yet he doesn't leave. He doesn't sort of extract himself from that situation. He just continues on. And there's another moment that happens as well where they pull into a parking lot where the guys are about to commit a robbery, and they're quite well orchestrated. They know what they're doing. They will set off bombs in pornography stores in order to create a distraction. And this is the other thing. The action scenes are pretty great. That's one thing that separated it from Rebel Ridge for me, is that when it kicks into its action scenes, the score kicks in, there's tension, it's exciting, it takes a step up, whereas Rebel Ridge felt like it kind of undercut those moments a little. But there's a moment where Jude Law yells at Ty Sheridan to cover him, to back him up as he goes headlong in with a shotgun. And it's one of the promo shots where Jude Law just looks like a boss. He's standing there with his tash and that great hairline, and he's got an incredibly strong stance, and he's blasting off the shotgun. And Nicholas Holt's character pulls up behind him with the balaclava on and drives slowly past him. The two guys just share this look. Nicholas Holt had the opportunity to murder him right there, wrap up all of his problems, but he didn't do it. And Jude Law gets back into the car to Ty Sheridan, who's basically frozen in that moment, and he berates him. It gave me 70s vibes. It felt like a scene between Gene Hackman and Roy Scheider from The French Connection or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, these Australian filmmakers, there's a few of them. It's like Michaud, Kurzel and Joel Edgerton, those types of guys. And I love their films, and this was absolute corker. So if you've not seen The Order, get it watched, because for me, it's the best crime film of the year.
There was another scene that stood out in my head where I just went, Jesus, it really pulled me in, is where they have one of the gang members incarcerated in a cell, and Jude Law goes into the cell to interrogate him, and Jude Law slides up on the bench and just presses his whole body against him and presses his face against him, and Jude Law's nose starts to bleed, and it's really, I can feel the rage. Like, that was the thing. It's like, I want
just invades his space.
Yeah, it's like, I want to rip you to pieces. Like, you see the fury that's in that character.
I wonder, was that scripted or was that improvised? Because he gets right up into him. He's like pressing his face up against his face and basically dominating him. Just the way that a dog will kind of like step over another dog and sit on that dog. It's like, you're mine now. And yeah, it freaks that guy out. But yeah, it's a really good film.
Great film. And actually developed by Jude Law. This is a Jude Law project from the ground up, because his production company developed this as well, Riff Raff. So it's, fair play.
Another
really,
good
really
production
good
name. Another good production name.
Yeah.
Why'd you call me about this case?
I need your help. Hate groups don't rob banks.
Go, go, go! There's 6 steps in that book. Recruiting, training, fundraising, assassination.
What's 6? Large-scale domestic terror attacks. Come on! Take him now. Get out of your dick! How much they get? Let's go!
3.6 million.
What does that buy?
Buys an army.
It's happening. War's begun.
You're drawing too much attention.
From who?
The FBI. I've warned you before. You are playing with fire.
Morning, my brothers. We want you to join us on a mission, putting words into action. Will you stand up and fight to survive?
Does Terra Scoop yours have a name?
In the book, they're called The Order.
Defeat. Victory. Defeat. Victory. Defeat. Victory.
My number 4. So we shared a number 5. We both had that one. So let's go back to you for your number 4.
My number 4 is Flow.
Oh, okay. So that was my number 6. Okay. We both have spoken about Flow in the past, haven't we?
We have, on the mini bits.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Flow for me is my favourite animated film of the year by a large margin. It's the story of a solitary cat that's displaced by a great flood and finds refuge on a boat with various species and must navigate the challenges of adapting to a transformed world. It's a silent film. It's all told from the perspective of this little cat who is living in a kind of a dreamlike world where humans, if they did exist, they're long gone, but the structures that they left behind are still there. So this cat has a little bed in this abandoned house, and it's quite a beautiful looking film, but there are rising floodwaters, and so the cat, in avoiding the floodwaters, ends up on a little raft and eventually a boat with some other animals that band together. And it might sound like this might be a Disney film or whatever, but it's not that at all. It feels like a dreamed fable. It's a beautiful film. It's got a lovely tone to it. It's really transportive and enigmatic, and it's a special film. I loved it, and I was glad that you recommended it, because when you first started telling me about this film, which is it from Belarus or somewhere like that?
Latvia. I'm pretty sure it was Latvian filmmaker.
Yeah, the minute I heard you talking about a Latvian cat film, I thought, oh, good Christ, what is this? I was expecting some bleak Cold War type animated thing, like the Russian cartoons that The Simpsons would parody, but it's not that at all. It's beautiful, and yeah, I loved it. So it's my number 4. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I highly it was my number 6, so I highly recommend it as well. The animator, the filmmaker, is a guy called Gints Zilbalodis. Please forgive me for that.
You nailed that. That's perfect.
Thank you. I really want to watch he had another feature out in 2019 called Away, and it sounds like it might have similar vibes, and I really want to seek that out and watch it. Look, I've spoke about this film on the mini bits, and you know we share the same thoughts.
We're doing a real hard sell for the mini bits, but you know this is where we talk about recent releases. So if you want to hear us really dive into these films, go to our mini bits, go to our Patreon and our bonus shows. Yeah.
The best compliment I can give this film is that for the gamers out there, this feels like a film made by Team Ico, who are the video game studio who make the masterpieces that are The Last Guardian, Ico, and Shadow of the Colossus. And they all have Flow, and those games share a similar vibe where you feel like a really small, vulnerable creature in this epic landscape. And there's no exposition. It's a story with zero exposition, only a situation. And you as an audience member are kind of just leaning into the mystery of this landscape and this world and what's happened. And because there's such an innocent, small, fragile protagonist to latch onto, you really do latch onto that protagonist because you feel vulnerable because you don't know what's going on. And I certainly feared for this cat and hoped this cat would survive and also developed a connection to all those other animals that the cat bonds with along the way. This is a film you can watch with your kids because there's no big nasty scares. Myself and Ellie were transfixed. We were both going, let's watch that again. Yeah, we'll watch that again. So this is a for all ages animated film. I highly recommend it. Definitely.
Okay, so my number 3 is also a film that you can watch with your kids.
Hold on. I have to give you my number 4. That was your number 4. So my number 4 is, yes. So my number 4 is one that I think you brought up already. It's Small Things Like These. Where was it on your list?
7.
Okay, right. So to give you a little setup for this, because as we say, people probably haven't listened to many bits. This is an adaptation of a novel. It's a short novel by Claire Keegan, adapted by Enda Walsh and directed by Tim Milans, who's a director I'm not aware of. but it stars Cillian Murphy, Emily
Written by
Watson,
Enda Kenny.
and the former Taoiseach.
No, Enda Walsh.
Enda Walsh. So it's a story about a coal merchant who's got his own loving, warm family it's a Christmas story. So yay, put it on at Christmas with the kids.
That's what was my review on Letterboxd, is small things like these is a Christmas film. It's a very harrowing Christmas film, but it's also beautiful. Yeah. It's also really, really beautiful.
Bill is a coal merchant, and when he's delivering coal to a local convent, he uncovers some disturbing truths about the convent when he sees a girl being forcibly, taken and deposited in that convent. And it's basically a story where he is confronting a moral dilemma in front of him, but also it's a catalyst which brings up his own past and the sense of people turning a blind eye to the horrible things that the Catholic Church are doing within the community. And so it's about one man struggling with his present and past and what to do next. But I really, really, really like this film. I was very curious to hear what you think of the film, so I want to hear your thoughts on it, Kevin.
So when you recommended this film to me, I thought, I'm not going to enjoy that at all. Another bleak, miserable Irish film dealing with the disgraceful history of the Magdalen laundries. I thought, I've been there, I've seen that, and I've also lived through 80s Ireland. I know what that's like. And as much as I have a great fondness for that, it was a really tough time. There was a lot of emigration going on. There was a huge jump in quality of living between Ireland and the UK. It was just a time when the Catholic Church just ruled everything. They ruled the schools, they ruled the governments. They had their fingers in all the pies, and that comes up in the story where one of the characters says to Cillian Murphy, look, don't be rattling the cages here, because you want your kids to get into a good school, and the only school that really can take them is the school run by the nuns. And there are knock-on effects where doing the right thing can end up with an awful lot of terrible things happening to you. And those conversations are spoken about in hushed tones, as if the Catholic Church are listening to them. A wife quietly saying to her husband, look, that's not going to happen to our kids. Let's not dig up this box of problems here. Or a barmaid saying to him, like, just look after your own family. Like, don't be worrying about this.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's melodramatic, but it's so true to life that the magic of this film and why it works so well on me is that it felt like a time machine. It took me right back to a place that I know so well in my bones, that the dialogue didn't feel like dialogue. It felt like I was eavesdropping on conversations that I would have heard. There's a beauty in it that I didn't expect, and I found it very, very moving. There's an aspect to films that I love, and it's that transportive nature to them, where you're seeing a world that you haven't experienced. But what this film did that is different to an awful lot of films is that it took down the veil between what films can do and what real life is. So, how do I say this? This almost felt like a film that was so private that I shouldn't be seeing it. And it felt like, no, that's ours. That's how we talk to each other. That's our world. That's our way of speaking. That's our character. And to have that on screen presented as drama, be presented as entertainment, I felt almost like somebody that had a favorite band and they've suddenly blown up and now everybody likes them. And I'm like, no, that's my fucking band.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? It's the total opposite of how I felt with the Banshees of Inisherin, where I felt like that is a mockery of what I think of Ireland. Whereas this just felt like, my God, that's us. That really is what I know to be true. And it's there for everybody to see and experience. And I felt almost naked.
It's the way the story, everything about, because it's set in the 1980s, everything about this fucking story felt really familiar. Just to your point, Kevin, we all knew that you didn't question anyone in the Catholic Church, whether it be a priest or a nun. And sometimes you heard there were cases in my life anyway. You heard of kids who got the shit beat out of them, and parents who went and stood up to the church. But this is the church, like the nun, the convent in our town. They had their hands in the national school and also secondary school. And the secondary school was the better school, exactly like the story, the situation here in Small Things Like These. And all those nuns were staying in the same convent. And so if you had a reputation, that reputation followed you. And you knew they preferred certain families over other families. And they just, like, there would be kids from a poor farming family and they got treated like shit versus kids who came from a slightly middle class, upper middle class family, children of the local doctor or whatnot, or civil servants, and they all got treated just that little bit better, a little bit of favoritism. Well, they just didn't get the shit beat out of them. And what this is one of those stories of a man who is. There's an expression you use a lot that I feel is absolutely apt for describing this film. It's a situation where someone shouldn't borrow trouble, This is one of those situations where Cillian Murphy's character shouldn't borrow trouble, which he should just keep his head down, mind his own business. But he just can't look away. It's that good person doing something relatively small, but it's huge.
Because it ties into his own upbringing, where he is the child of a single mother, and things could have been very different for his mum. And it sort of hits home for him. But it's a beautiful, beautiful film. And it's not harrowing. It's not disturbing. It's not bleak. It's not miserable. There's just a humanity on display that I found very enriching. And it is a really good Christmas film. I know I'm saying that to be glib, but you've said this before in the past, which is that all good Christmas stories involve someone being brought in from the cold. And that happens in this story. Yeah. And it's
a beautiful ending.
Yeah, very beautiful. And it was just enough, like if it went any further, because you can imagine what the conversations would be beyond that and the trouble that's now going to fall upon that family.
Yeah.
But I found it so beautiful, again, to use that word.
Do you know that last shot? And I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't watched it. But there's a moment where it cuts, and I know the emotion, the next emotion, you know it's not going to be the whole like dancing a jig and hugging and all that kind of stuff. We've got a lot of trouble on our hands now. Yeah. I'm so glad you liked it as much as I did. It's my number 4.
Also, Cillian Murphy, he plays. When he did Oppenheimer, he was brilliant at conveying the sense of apocalyptic doom and despair and guilt and all those horrible feelings of what have I wrought upon the world. And in this, it shows that the Catholic Church are even more devastating than an atomic bomb.
Yeah.
And it's a magnificent performance from him. A very understated performance, but by God, was it truthful. I knew exactly who everybody was in this film. It just all tracked for me.
Did it make sense when I was discussing it before that the camera goes really into his face and you're in his head? You're so in, the filmmaking puts you right in his head. So any micro gesture he makes seems amplified, which might make it feel like he's overacting, but I don't think he is. I just think the story is so fucking in his brain that you feel like you can see the gears turning, and also that sense of not having the language to describe what the turmoil that's going on. Like when we didn't have.
That's it. Yeah, like I don't think that he's someone who is evasive. I feel like he doesn't know how to express what he feels deep within him.
Yeah.
And his wife is just frustrated by that, but in a way that's totally understandable. Like I could talk forever about this film, but I think people should just watch it. It's really, really powerful.
Yeah.
Hey, girls.
Kathleen. Hi, Dad.
How are you getting on?
Well, good.
Come on now, finish up your toast before it gets cold.
Mommy, please!
suicide. Daddy!
I will live in the past, the present, and the future. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach.
You'd want to watch what you'd say about what's there. People can make things difficult for you.
Don't you ever question it?
The Lord is compassion and love, slow to anger and rich in mercy. No, don't be thinking you're in any trouble. The Lord is compassion and love. The Lord is compassion and love. The Lord is compassion and love.
If you want to get on in this life, there are things you have to ignore.
I'm really glad you enjoyed it. I'm really glad we got a chance to discuss it because this is our first time even talking about it together. Great stuff. That's brilliant. So that's my number 4. That was your number something for a little bit further down the list.
That was my number 7.
Great. So what is your number 3, Kevin?
My number 3 is Love Lies Bleeding.
Oh, okay. Very good. Yeah, very good. It's in my top
50.
It's in my top 20. Yeah, it's in my top 20. Yeah. I did see it. Tell me about it. Refresh it for me.
It's directed by Rose Glass, who did Saint Maud, a film which I still haven't seen. It stars Kristen Stewart, Ed Harris, Dave Franco, Jenna Malone. Is it Katie O'Brien?
Yeah, it's Jackie. She's Katie O'Brien played Jackie. She was the actual bodybuilder. Yeah.
If I was reclusive gym manager Lou, played by Kristen Stewart, who falls hard for Jackie, an ambitious bodybuilder headed through town to Las Vegas in pursuit of a dream, but their love ignites violence, pulling them deep into the web of Lou's criminal family. This is really vibrant, really eye-popping in its visuals. Ed Harris plays a really sinister villain in it. It's gripping, it's gory, it's a terrific looking crime film. It's singed with magical realism. It devolves into a kind of a mullet-filled mayhem that I appreciated. It's set in the 80s, but it feels quite dynamic and quite modern. Kristen Stewart, again, is like excellent. I just think she's always great in films. She's able to convey this energy that few other actors possess. And this just plays right to her strengths. It's as American as apple pie, but it's rotten to its core, really. Yeah, I loved it. What did you think of it? It's not as high on your list, but...
No, it's not as high on my list. I'm trying to figure out why it's not as high on my list. It was such a... This was... If I had a list of films that were totally surprising, this would be right up there, very close to the top of films that I thought was totally surprising. I think maybe the reason it didn't make my top 10 was because there was a kind of a grimness to the overall world and tale that's been told.
It's very grotesque in places.
And I think that's the strength. That's the strength of the filmmaking, where it doesn't shy away from the icky aspects of this tale.
Ed Harris eating a horned beetle.
Oh, God, yeah. And did you say, I think you did say, it's got this fable-like quality to it, this dream-like magical realism. You definitely said magical realism because it so goes there at the end. And I enjoyed that leap, and I think maybe other people wouldn't enjoy it as much. It was, again, it kind of shows that this has been a strong year because it's in my top 20 and could have shifted around. Like I was moving that film around all over the shop in that teens, and it didn't quite break through into the top 10 for me. But yeah, a very impressive film. I was glad I watched it.
See, for me, there are certain films which fill a similar space. So as I was saying with Rebel Ridge and The Order, it's like, one of these is going to go in my top 10 list, so I'm going to pick The Order. And with this, it was like, there's Love Lies Bleeding and there's The Substance. They're both really confronting films and really colourful and grotesque. But The Substance felt a little thin in terms of story. And once I got the allegory and once I got the symbolism, I just felt like, speed it up now. Come on, let's get going. Whereas this, I could have spent another hour in this world.
I'm thinking of The Grimy Teeth. Remember one of the girlfriends has got these really awful teeth. And I think that typifies this film where it's just like, it doesn't shy away from the ugliness in any respect. There's a lot of bodily fluids in this film.
Give us a call.
So where did you appear from? Oklahoma. I've never been anywhere but here. What were you doing with that big girl?
Get a lot of crazy-ass foreigners, mostly. How's it going, guys?
This here's Jackie.
Hi.
She needs a job. Says she'll do anything.
Yeah, you like guns?
Not really.
What the fuck you doing here then?
My number 3, and I don't know if it's on your list at all, is Challengers, directed by Luca Guadagnino.
It's not on my list.
I was totally surprised by this film because it was so kinetic and energetic. At its core, it's a love triangle between 3 incredibly competitive people.
Not much love between the 3 of them, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's more competitiveness.
Yeah.
There's a competition going on between them. It was one of those stories that I love the framing device where we open in a kind of not a major tennis match. It seems like it's one of those offshoot tennis tournaments that's happening somewhere. There's a crowd, but it's not like, one of the Wimbledon or US Opens or whatever they are. But we have the camera is so dynamic in that opening scene where the soundtrack is thumping like it's a techno nightclub soundtrack, and the camera swoops in over the net as the ball has been hit back and forth across the between these 2 competitors, and we zero and zoom right into the stand where Zendaya is coldly sitting there with her sunglasses, just watching both competitors.
That was the reason that he wanted to write the film, the writer of that. He said that...
Really?
Yeah, it was that tennis is a sport that is played by more than those that are on the court. And that if you ever watch a tennis match, a competitive tennis match, they will always keep flashing to the box. So the same way that you'd have shots of coaches in football games, it's the same with tennis. And there have even been tennis players who've been fined because they feel like they're getting coached from the stands. There are certain glances being, and you can't do that. And he zeroed in on that, and he thought, once he had the idea of who Zendaya's character was going to be, who was heavily invested in the outcome of this game, he thought, no, I've got a movie. So it's not about the players, it's about the person in the stand watching.
And this film just pulled me right in from that opening scene. It just grabbed me by the collar and just pulled me right into the film. And I wanted to know, what's going on here, because that this isn't simply a match between 2. One looks kind of bedraggled, played by Josh O'Connor. He's unshaven. His gear is a bit tattier, and it feels like he's literally slept in the car the previous night before he got out to play. And he's playing a guy, what's his name? The actor is called Mike Faced or something. Yeah, Mike Faced. So he's playing against Mike Faced, who is slick, clean cut. He's got all the top gear, but there is something else going on between these 2 guys, that this match has got much more at stake than just a regular semi-final of this back end of nowhere competition. And over the match itself is like a framing device where we go back in their history, the history of these characters, and we find Art and Josh O'Connor's character Patrick. Those 2 were like tennis buddies from when they were kids, and Zendaya, the girl who's in the stands, was a rising star in the tennis scene. That she was going to be the next Williams sisters, one of them type characters, and they are immediately competitive in who gets to kiss her or who gets to get her number and stuff like that. And what unravels is this story over the course of a decade of the interpersonal, I suppose, competitiveness between the three of them, of one trying to win over Zendaya and Zendaya trying to control Josh O'Connor or Mike Faist. And I just totally, I found it riveting because all the characters were compelling, particularly Zendaya and how cold and calculating and driven she was. She's fantastic in this. But then how effortlessly talented Josh O'Connor is. Like, he can sleep in a car curled up awkwardly, in a small like VW Beetle and get out and play against one of the best players in the world and take him right to the line, that sort of way. So filmmaking wise, thought it was great. I just thought it was a compelling story. I know it's not on the top of, it hasn't made a lot of the top 10 lists of the year, but for me, it was one of my favorite films by Luca Guadagnino. I know one of his films was on your top 10 maybe last year or the year before, the one where Bones and All or something like that.
Bones and All, and also I haven't seen Queer. He's got 2 films out this year, hasn't he?
Yeah, I haven't seen Queer yet.
That's incredibly impressive to be able to bang out 2 films like that and for both of them to be in awards contention.
Tashi Duncan, just going to turn a whole family into millionaires.
Unfortunately, my only skill in life is hitting a ball with a racket.
I want you to be my coach. I want you to be my coach.
How often does this happen? Going after the same girl?
He's not in love with you.
What makes you think I want someone to be in love with me?
My number 2, Will, was Anora.
Oh, okay. And that was my number 7. Okay, so it's in my top 10. We haven't discussed this yet. This is a film we haven't discussed at all yet.
Not on Minibits?
No.
Subscribe to our Minibits. They're great. Anora, this to me was an absolute fucking riot of a film. I loved it. It's easily my favourite Sean Baker film. I loved Red Rocket. I loved Tangerine. I even loved Florida Project until that coda at the end, which I've talked about ad nauseum on the podcast. This to me was incredibly entertaining. It's really slick. She's fantastic in it. Mikey Madison. Yeah. I can see now why all the talk is about her getting an Oscar nomination. She fully deserves it. I've only seen her in that Scream remake that they did, or that requel that they did a few years back. The other character in this film that I thought was, well, there's 2 of them. There's the Russian boyfriend. I thought he was brilliant. And then the Russian heavies were fantastic, but particularly the bald heavy guy.
Igor.
I thought he was Igor. I thought he was so funny and charming and adorable. But basically, the story to Anora is she's a sex worker from Brooklyn. She gets her chance at a Cinderella story when she meets and impulsively marries this Russian son of an oligarch. Once the news of this illicit marriage in Vegas travels back to Russia, her fairy tale is threatened as her parents set out for New York, and the Russian boyfriend shits himself knowing his parents are coming and goes on the lam. And she and the Russian heavies who've been sent there to basically ensure that this marriage gets annulled go on a hunt to find this guy. It's almost 2 movies in one. The second half of the movie where they're trying to find the Russian guy. Maybe this is all spoilers. I don't know.
I think the story flip, it is like, it was in the description right there, but I didn't know any of this was going to happen. So I pressed play on this going,
neither did I.
Not a clue. And
neither
when the story flipped, and that was for me, I was thinking of you. I went, oh, mid-act climax, the story flips. And that's when it just elevated for me, where I just went, I am having a blast with this fucking film. I just had a fucking riot of a time with them. It's not out and out, laugh out loud the whole way through. But
no, it's the right kind of comedy, though. It's the kind of comedy where the moments where I thought, like, this has got such a lovely tone to it, is the Igor character has to hold on to Mikey Madison, and he can't let her go because she's a wildcat. She's going fucking crazy, and she's breaking things. And he's obviously like a really dangerous guy, but he doesn't want to hurt her. And he's completely out of his depth. He doesn't know what to do. He's kind of like a deer in headlights. Like, what? She's crazy. What am I doing? And he's got her in a bear hug, and he's like, please just calm down.
Yeah.
For such dark material, for such really kind of grubby, you're dealing with Russian oligarchs and gangsters and sex workers and drugs and all this kind of shit. It's a very fun, entertaining, light film. And it does kind of wear out its welcome a little bit in the second half. There's like maybe 10 minutes, I'd say, you could cut out of the second half of the film where they're going from this place to that place to this place to that place to try and find this guy. That I feel like if you truncated that a little bit, it would have been a perfect film. But other than that, it's incredibly entertaining. And the final note of the film, I think, is also really needed, necessary, and perfect.
Yeah.
So I summed this up on Letterboxd with just one word, which was just fantastic. I knew I was going to be talking about it on this podcast. It's my favorite Sean Baker film. I think she's incredible. It's also beautiful to look at. It's shot with these lovely anamorphic lenses. Really, truly just terrific and so entertaining.
It's set up for me. It presents these characters who initially I not totally despised, like definitely not Mickey Madison's characters, but the Russian oligarch kid, I fucking hated, right? And
I kind of loved him.
He's a doofus. Like, he was a complete doof, right? He was a doof.
He's such a unique energy. I've never seen that type of character on screen before. This wide-eyed boy who's just been given everything, and he's a little heathen, and yeah, he's like Caligula.
But what I liked about his particularly the way the story treats his character is that the first half of the story is one side of him. You know, when Mammy and Daddy's not looking, and he's getting to do whatever he wants and fill out his wildest ambitions and dreams. And the second half of the story is, oh, wait, now the pressure's on you a little bit. Now let's see how you react. And I always, when thinking about stories and characters, I always try and manufacture a situation where my character's been put under pressure and see how they react as the water gets hotter and hotter underneath him, and it's the same case for all of the characters, because the temperature of the water is just boiling and boiling and boiling, and we see how Mickey Madison's character reacts, and she is, as you said, she's a wildcat, and she will fight.
Mikey,
is it Mikey? She will fight for fucking everything.
Mickey.
She's
like Mickey Rooney.
Could be Mickey. She will fucking fight with every fiber of her being. She
did something in the story which I haven't seen others talk about, and maybe I'm overanalyzing it, but I thought that she did really well at code switching, where she is one type of personality when she's in the sex club, where she's a stripper and a private dancer and stuff, and she's got a very thick accent. And then when she's with her sister, she's more tamped down. And when she's with this Russian guy, she's angling, you know, she's on the make, essentially. She wants to make some money, and this guy's like paying her 10 grand for her to be his girlfriend over Christmas. It's like, for New Year's and things, 10 grand for the whole week. But she's really good at keeping a consistency between these different types of versions of herself that she's performing for other people. Yeah. I just thought there was a real depth to how she was portraying herself, because this could come off as a snaky bitch of a character. She's not that at all. She's really likable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really liked the brothers, who are basically his minders, who are the Russian oligarch kids minders, and how, you know, how they're I found that we really,
they're the comic relief.
They're the comic relief. It never gets nasty. That's the one good thing you can do. The film never gets nasty, which I was afraid it would.
There was a moment where I burst out laughing, where the guy who's basically been charged with being the minder of the Russian kid while the parents are away, he's like a priest. I don't know what, a Russian Orthodox priest. I don't know what their hierarchy is, but he's doing a christening, and at the same time he's learning all what's gone on, that the Russian kid has gone away to Vegas, he's gotten married. And he's getting these text messages, and you can see that he thinks he's going to get killed, like he's going to be murdered over this. And he looks down at his phone and he's like, It's just this very internalized, like, anger and fear and just horror. And I burst out laughing. The performances across the board are so entertaining, so excellent.
Yeah. A treat of a film. It's not. I think we're selling it as like, a laugh out loud comedy. It's not like laugh out loud the whole way, but it's certainly the funniest film of Sean Baker's. I had a blast with it. It's on my list because, as I said, all of the films here on my list in the top 10 are films I couldn't take my eyes off of, and that was the case with Anora as well. I just couldn't take my eyes off it. I was utterly compelled.
It's also, and this is going to probably sound a bit confusing to some if they've seen it, and it might steer you wrong if you haven't seen it and you want to see it. But I also found it quite romantic. There was something very lovely about a guy who he was like so enamored with Anora or Annie, and he loved the name Anora more than Annie. He really likes her, and he really, she's way beyond his class, and she's a sex worker and he's a gangster, but she's miles beyond him. He's so smitten by her. He just thinks that she's magical. She's just an incredible creature, and she thinks he's a piece of shit. And anytime you have those dynamics, they're so entertaining.
And there's a tenderness. There's a very sweet tenderness between the two of them. And there's a lovely scene. I remember there was one where he lights 2 cigarettes. They're relaxing and they're just, and she just is like, will you shut the fuck up? Shut the fuck up. Where it's her, it's just, that's her true self.
And the fact that she doesn't know what her name means. And you think that's the conversation has ended. And then he just casually takes out his phone and he's looking up her name and he's telling her what her name means. And
it's a sweet film. It really is.
Oh, it's lovely.
Annie, I got a kid who wants someone who speaks Russian. Let's go.
No, I'm eating my food.
You're killing me. He's a spender. Come on, let's go.
Hello, this is the beautiful Annie.
Hi, I'm Annie.
I'm Ivan.
It was really weird. And I love him. No way. Yes way. Bruh. And I'm seeing him again tonight.
Will you marry me?
Seriously?
Seriously.
3 carrots.
What about 4?
You hit the lotto, bitch.
I know. Bro, didn't I tell you?
Are you happy?
Very happy.
Your parents are gonna kill you.
I love my husband.
You do not know this guy.
We are consenting adults.
If you think this is gonna be allowed, you're dead wrong.
Do not touch me.
Like Cinderella.
Yes, Cinderella. We are married. They're gonna have to accept that. Doesn't matter about anything, okay?
Powerful.
My number 2 is a film that I did discuss on the previous Mini Bits, and it is Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. For those of you who haven't heard me discuss it on the previous Mini Bits, it is a very direct adaptation of the Dracula tale, but it very much, I think, this version focuses a bit more on the Lily Rose Depp character. What was her name? Ellen Hutter was her name, and she's quite pivotal in the telling of this tale, which I think is a great slight story change from the original version. She's great in it. A newlywed girl who seems to be afflicted by visions in a world where crazy medicines and all that sort of stuff. She's married to Nicholas Hoult, who is, if you know the Dracula tale, he's the young real estate kid who's been sent off to the slaughter, essentially, to go to Transylvania to do this deal with Count Orlok, played by Bill Skarsgård. This was a delicious film.
Delicious.
Every frame could have been a painting. It's passionate and it's heaving and it's sensual, which isn't what I would say about the previous Nosferatu, let's say the original 1920s version of this one.
Robert Eggers said he's wanted to make this film since he was 9 years old.
Oh, wow.
So that's insight into a 9-year-old's brain.
Wow.
How passionate and delicious and sensual the film is.
Yeah. I thought it was, this again for me is the year of Nicholas Hoult. Like, Jesus Christ, he's had so many great roles, and he's very good in this because I feel his vulnerability when he is thrown into this, essentially just thrown into this cage of the castle of Count Orlok, and no matter what he does to try and escape, he cannot get out of that castle. He does everything he can. You feel like, just go there, just go now, just run. And he runs, but he always ends up back at the table, essentially. This is the type of film that I would want to watch in the cinema again and again. Everyone is delicious. They redesigned Nosferatu they redesigned just a Nosferatu character from the previous iterations. He doesn't have maybe he does actually have a bald head, but he's very much more Slavic now, and he's much more hulking and intimidating than the Max Schreck version. And there's something about the Dracula tale that tickles me in the same way that A Christmas Carol does. Like, no matter how many times I've heard the Christmas Carol tale, I kind of enjoy, hearing it again or seeing it again in different iterations as long as it's well executed. And there's something about the Dracula tale as well, which I can't quite put my finger on, but I think there's something compelling about that story that I'm quite happy I'm looking forward to the next time I see the next iteration of that tale. So this version is excellent. I thought it was a really, really great job, really, and I recommend you see it.
That's the same for me with the Fast and the Furious films.
Right.
I could just watch that iteration again and again.
I've never shared my secret with any soul.
You've had these spells since childhood. Tell me what you can from the beginning.
It is like a dream. It was our wedding. When we turned around, everyone was dead. The stench of their bodies was horrible. Standing before me was death. But I had never been so happy.
And that brings us now to your number one.
Well, before I tell you what my number one is, I think there's been a few films that haven't come up yet that I'm surprised by. And I'm wondering whether there are any honorable mentions you want to bring up. Because while we're talking here, I expected at some point films like Furiosa to get mentioned, and it didn't.
No.
Or The Substance. And I thought, well, he's not going to mention that, so it's going to fall to me. And I didn't bring that up, really. The Apprentice didn't get a mention. These are all films that are in my top 20 that I really, really enjoyed. Kneecap, I thought, was a laugh. I really was impressed by that film. Strange Darling, I loved.
Yeah, I've got a few that I definitely wanted to give an honorable mention to. This has been a year of the music biopics. We've had A Complete Unknown, which I very much enjoyed, but it did not make my top 10. Also, I watched Kneecap, which I thought was really impressive. And I enjoyed it probably more than A Complete Unknown because it was so train spotting.
That's got the line of the year for me, which is that I'm going to blow you like a Brighton hotel.
It was brilliant. And I love the little animation flourishes in it and whatnot. It was really impressive.
They were really capable and credible actors. I thought they gave fantastic performances.
Yeah. It was like a Hard Day's Night on drugs. Beatles movie. So
it was a bit like Spice World. It was one of those piss take biopics where they just made up their own backstory.
Yeah. I'm
going for the opposite end of the spectrum here, which is another bullshit biopic. But I enjoyed that. I like the fact that it just played fast and loose and just mythologized the band.
And I was going to watch The Substance last night because I was trying to cram in.
Oh, you've not seen it?
So last night was my night to watch The Substance. But at the last second, I saw that Better Man was getting good reviews. And I said, shit, let's watch Better Man.
The Robbie Williams Ape movie.
And I watched Better Man. And you want to know something? It works.
Yeah.
It's good.
What, Better Man?
Better Man works.
I think I'll enjoy that. I like Robbie Williams music. I don't care what people think of me. I think he's got some really great songs. I remember meeting the people that do the Robbie Williams podcast at the Independent Podcast Awards, not the last one, but the one before that. And they had a sort of I think that they would do when they were just talking to people, which is like, what's your favorite Robbie Williams song? Because that's like the whole thing of their angle into the Robbie Williams discography.
Okay.
And I was like, I think mine is Feel.
Oh,
That's
okay.
my favorite Robbie Williams song.
I think you're
just
going.
want to feel real love. Yeah, I think that's a great song.
I think you like Better Man. I really enjoyed it actually, and was.
I don't like that they say the music business makes a monkey of us all, or something like that, because he's not a monkey; he's an ape.
He is an ape, and I don't remember that line. Even though
it's the tagline. The tagline to the poster.
Okay,
monkeys have tails. If they don't have a tail, they're an ape.
And you want to know, I thought the gimmick of him being a monkey would be distracting, but in actual fact, it serves the film. An ape, but actually it serves it serves as well in the telling of the story, because we're not distracted by someone who's doing an impression of Robbie Williams. Did
he play himself? Is he mocapped? Is it?
I don't think it's him. When the singing happens, it's Robbie Williams, but I don't think it's Robbie Williams who's playing himself. Just see here.
So it's just a fully CG character in the middle of.
Yeah, the guy who actually wore the suit was John Davies. So it's a full mocap capture thing, but it's a tale of someone who I think Robbie Williams' story is so well known to everyone. He's a guy who just partied hard.
I honestly don't know much about his backstory.
I really do think you'd like it, because it's someone who it was a rags to riches story. But obviously, when he got fame, he just.
But you love biopics, like you love that
music
Rocket
biopics.
Man and things like that.
Yeah, music biopics. Yeah, so
and Elvis,
loved Rocket Man. Really enjoyed A Complete Unknown. But for me, Better Man and Kneecap are actually better than A Complete Unknown. I think they're more ambitious, and I appreciate them for being a little bit more. I think music movies should be they should go theatrical,
extravagant.
I really do think they should. So. What about you? Any other honorable mentions that you...
Well, there was one that I was going to include in my top 10. It's number 11, and it's purely there because it came out so long ago. Like, I saw it in January, that I feel like it was one of those films that I should have seen from my best of 2023 list, and I didn't in time.
Yeah.
So I can't really say whether I should include it this year, but it's All of Us Strangers, which was the Paul Mescal, Andrew Scott film. Oh, it was incredible. Probably the saddest film of all of the films of 2024 that I've seen. It was so deeply sad and a pervasive sadness. But Andrew Scott plays this lonely, tortured screenwriter, so I could relate to that, incredibly.
Yeah.
Sort of traveling back through his memories of his long departed parents. And he meets Paul Mescal, and he's basically just a haunted guy. And it's beautiful. It's really, really beautiful, but such a sad film.
Right. I can't believe I missed it. It's one of those films because I feel it was last year's. I think that's probably what happened. It was kind of on the...
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
I also love Last Stop in Yuma County, the indie film that all takes place at a truck stop, at a diner. I thought that was brilliant. At Snack Shack, of course. But I guess I should give you my number one then. Because I think we've both got the same number one.
I don't think we do. I know for a fact we don't have the same number one.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay, then you tell me. Oh no, all right. My number one is Civil War.
Okay, that's what I was expecting. Yeah, that's what.
Why were you expecting that? Am I just that fucking obvious and basic?
No, because I remember you saying it back when you reviewed it. First of all, you said this is probably it was your favorite film of the year so far. And you said at the beginning, and you said at the beginning of this recording that it was. I think you said your top one was a lock from early in the year. It hadn't shifted, but it was my number 11. It just bumped at the last second. I bumped it off for Wicked Little Letters. I just bumped Wicked Little Letters ahead of Civil War.
Civil War for me was. Did you see it in the cinema?
No, you see, I saw it as a screener.
Okay, I saw it in the cinema, and it blew my testicles to the back of my nostrils. It was thrilling. It was also really enigmatic and beautiful. And it took these flights of fancy where it would go into these almost dreamlike set pieces that I really appreciated, where parts of the story felt like montage or music video. It had a great soundtrack with all these excellent needle drops. this just treated an American conflict the same way that American movies would treat a foreign conflict, where you're dropped into it, you don't really understand the situation, you're in a very visceral survival movie. The criticisms were people wanted it to make a statement about the culture wars and the rising fascism in the States. That's too much for one movie to have to deal with. That's not something that you can sum up in a film. And if you had a very didactic film like that, you'd end up just despising it because it's moralizing, it's preaching, and it's telling you what you should think, which you already, if you're a right-minded, like-minded person like me, you already think that. You don't need somebody else to be telling you, whatever. And then you're causing the people that you want to appeal to change their ways, to feel victimized, which they love to do anyway.
Yeah.
And feel like, oh, they're woke scolding me or whatever. So instead, it just showed you, if this does happen, this is probably how it might go down. And really, it's a story about photojournalists and the people that risk their lives to bring us the truth. And in a time and place where journalism is being undermined and devalued and it's going away, I thought that was the real message of it. And I love Kirsten Dunst. I think she's a really special actress. She's got one of the strongest filmographies of any of her peers. And this is another feather to her cap. It's a brilliant performance in a fantastic film filled with all these great moments. And it was everything that I wanted. It was an artful blockbuster.
I'm so glad. I thought it was very powerful. I thought it was very, very powerful. I think the fact that I didn't see it in the cinema was a negative for me. Not a negative, but I should have seen it in the cinema to get the full whack of it.
Especially the sound design.
Yeah, it's chilling. That's the aspect of the story that I found most compelling, was the fact that it feels prescient. It feels like, oh shit, are we headed in that direction when it comes to the US?
We're already there.
I know, but to a point of open armed conflict where war is broken out, civil war is broken out. I'm glad you brought it up. That's the reason I bumped it off, because it says I think Kevin's going to bring up civil war.
19 states have seceded. The United States Army ramps up activity.
The White House issued warnings to the Western forces as well as the Florida Alliance.
The three-term president assures the uprising will be dealt with swiftly.
Let me know if you want to try anything on.
Are you guys aware there's a pretty huge civil war going on all across America?
We just try to stay out. With what we see on the news, seems like it's for the best.
Citizens of America, the so-called Western forces of Texas and California have suffered a very great defeat at the hands of the United States military.
Mr. President, do you regret the use of airstrikes against American citizens? We're moving to D.C. today.
We need to go down there.
They shoot journalists on sight in the Capitol. Every instinct in me says this is death. What?
Every time I survived a war zone, I thought I was sending a warning home. Don't do this. But here we are.
There's some kind of misunderstanding here. What? Well, you're American, okay? Okay. What kind of American are you? You don't know?
I have no idea now what your number one is going to be.
Well, my number one, as I said when I started off...
I've probably never seen it.
You did not, because as I said, when I was making my list, I was struggling to kind of even figure out how I was going to, which was going to be above what, and, making a list sometimes it's infuriating. And I was struggling because not like last year, for me, clearly The Holdovers was my favorite film of last year. And then the previous year, The Quiet Girl was clearly my film of that year, because there were films just hit me in the stomach. They punched me in a way.
Did we both have the same number one for both years?
We definitely last year. We definitely The Holdovers was our number one last year.
Quiet Girl was my number two, I think.
Yeah, that's what it was, yeah.
Yeah.
So this year...
I just don't like the Irish language.
That was probably it. I was struggling to find a clear number one for myself, because I didn't feel like I had found that film that meant something to me, until I saw this film a couple of nights ago, and it hit me like a fucking ton of bricks. And I just went, Jesus, that was utterly beautiful and human. And I'm so glad I've seen it, because I feel like my day is a bit better because I've watched this film. And it's a small little animated film. It's a stop motion animated film called Memoir of a Snail. Okay? Doesn't sound compelling, does it? It's direct.
I'm going to shut up now, because I went crazy when you started talking about Flow, and I thought, a Latvian fucking stray cat film. Oh, here we go. So now you're telling me a stop motion film about a snail. Okay, shut up.
Yeah,
listen.
I know. So it's written and directed by an Australian animator called Adam Elliott, right? And he is a very distinct style. He previously made another animated feature called Mary and Max. He has a very particular style where he makes grim stories beautiful. And this is the story about a girl called Grace who was separated from her twin brother at a young age when both their parents are dead. And it's almost like a Dickensian tale as we follow both of their lives as misfortune upon misfortune happens to both of them. And it's a story framed where we see Grace, who she's a human, she's not a snail, but she's obsessed with snails. And she's telling her story to her snail called Sylvia Plath.
The suicidal poet.
Yeah. And she's telling Sylvia Plath her life story. And we are the Sylvia Plath. We are the audience. But it's told in such a way that it's got a sense of humor, where one awful thing happens, and yet it's told in a way where you kind of laugh at. It's like laughing at a funeral. You know, it's got that kind of vibe.
Oh, it's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, laughing at a funeral. And I honestly don't know how to describe how it really moved me, because ultimately it's a story about, you know, no matter how shit life becomes, there's always a new tomorrow. There's always a new dawn. There's always a shining light, and there's always humanity in the world, even when you encounter.
Until there's not.
But there is. You know, there always, once there's other humans in the world, there's hope. There's always a new tomorrow.
I'll be on my deathbed, and you'll be there going to me, Kevin, it's never as bad as you think. There's always a tomorrow. And I'll be like, beep, beep, beep. Oh, for fuck's sake. That's Kevin for you.
There's Kevin. He's bleak.
He's always giving up.
Can I to give you an example, right, of the type of characters, the type of episodes that happen in it? She develops a relationship with a friendship with an elderly lady played by Jackie Weaver. You know Jackie Weaver, who was in Animal Kingdom and whatnot.
I love her. She's one of the great older actresses.
So Jackie Weaver plays an older lady called Pinky. When Grace describes Pinky to Sylvia Plath, she tells us Pinky's life story. And Pinky, and it's so entertaining how we see, Pinky was an exotic dancer over here. Pinky implanted bombs for some sort of terrorist organization over there. Pinky lost 2 husbands, you know, and it kind of has all these little vignettes where you, like you just said, you chuckle. It's one of those films that just makes you, despite all the misery, you can't help but chuckle and hope. And it was life affirming, always uplifting. And by the end of it, like I sobbed at the end of this film in happy tears.
Is it anything like Marcel the Shell with shoes on?
No, because Marcel the Shell with shoes on was really light. That had a real ASMR vibe to it. In actual fact, this character, Grace, in this is played by Sarah Snook, who she's, from the Succession.
Shiv from Succession.
So, but you don't recognize her, because she's got such a quiet voice. There's an ASMR quality to her voice. It's one of those films that came out of the blue. Actually, I think the only reason I watched it is because Dean on our Discord said, that was my favorite animated film of the year. He said Memoir of a Snail was his favorite animated film of the year. And I went, okay, I'll give this a go, because you never know. And once I watched it, I went, that was the one.
Which Dean? There's 2 Deans on our Discord.
Dean Kane.
I wouldn't trust anything he says. He likes terrible fucking films.
Well, it's because of him. I watched it because I saw him recommending it. And I'm so glad I did, because it was really beautiful. And you know what? In this time of year where we're heading into the new year, it's nice to get stories that make you feel a little bit sad, but also a little bit hopeful. And that's what it is. This film is filled with hope, ultimately. I recommend you watch it. I really do.
I wasn't always this alone. My childhood was full of people. The nurse said we had 2 souls, but 1 heart.
Hey, morons! Look, Gracie, they're hugging.
I believed in glasses half full and silver linings. Then my glass was shattered.
Bye, Gracie. Bye, Gilbert.
We had no choice but to move onwards. Pinky was the only colour in my life.
Bugger.
Losing a twin is like losing an eye. You never see the world the same way again.
Life isn't about looking backwards, Gracie. It's about living forwards. The worst cages are the ones we create for ourselves. It's time for you to shed your shell. Set yourself free.
I've added that to my watch list. And I guess that's it. It's been a really good year, I think.
Yeah, we said it last year.
I've got 20 films on my list. We're going to add these to Letterboxd so you can have a sort of a nose through our picks here and add ones that you want to watch to your watch list. But yeah, another episode done. And do you know what? We managed to do this the same as last year with terrible fucking audio issues. Yeah. Like really, really piss poor. I'll say this, I'm looking forward to hearing this episode back because I have missed about 2/3 of what you've said on this recording because of the interference and the signal
it's
dropping.
It's funny, you've been clean for me the whole way through this, and it seems to be it was on your ends this time.
Well, I did shower.
Okay. You smell luxurious. Kevin, it's been a pleasure. I'm glad to get back on mic. I was looking forward to getting on mic. It felt like it's been a long couple of weeks without us chatting. So I was glad to look at your face and listen to your lovely voice.
You're full of shit. But yeah, it was good. Hope you had a good New Year's. Take it easy. And we'll be back soon with another Mini Bits as our next recording. And then our next main show episode, we've decided between us, is going to be best courtroom scene.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's going to be heavy.
It is. Can you handle the truth?
You know I can't handle the truth. You know it.
So thanks for listening to us throughout 2024.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Another great year of the podcasting. Happy New Year. And we'll speak to you soon.
Great stuff. All right. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye now.
And here is a clip from the lads' latest Mini Bits bonus show. The full episode, plus 100 more, are available on their Patreon.
What up,
Mini Bits.
You're a horrible, horrible cunt. You horrible cunt.
Will and Kevin back on the mic here again, bringing banter to you for the festive season, talking shite about films, spreading Christmas cheer. Another Mini Bits, the last one of the year. Wrap up warm, grab a drink, settle in. 'Tis the season to give, so to all our patrons, Merry Christmas to you. Thanks for not canceling, and to any haters, we hope you can't stop crying. We hope your family drives you mad and Santa shits in your bin. Just kidding, we're here to have fun now. Let's begin.
And we're back. This is part 2 of the Mini Bits, Kevin.
It is. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling there. I'm in the zone. Christmas is, I can feel it just around the corner. I can't wait to wrap up and close things down. And
are you going to dress up as Santa for the kids?
Look behind me.
Are you though? Are you?
Look behind me.
I can see it.
There's a Santa costume right there.
But that's for the nativity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where Santa brings baby Jesus. He gives baby Jesus to Mary.
I'm going to dress up as baby Jesus. I have to go and collect my man-sized nappies soon. So that's my plan.
Did you ever do a nativity?
No, but can I tell you a quick story about one in Galway? This is a true story, right? This was a nativity from about 15 years ago now at this stage. And one of our friends' kids was in the class, so they were at this nativity. And they had usually it's like junior infants and senior infants. So like there were 4 and 5 year olds. And in the previous year, there was one kid who loved the spotlight, and he'd been cast rightfully as Joseph, and he just relished the spotlight, and he thought he really, just really ate up the opportunity to play a leading part in the nativity. And the following year they were doing the nativity again, and going into casting, he assumed that the role of Joseph was his in the bag. He was destined to be Joseph. But it turned out that the teachers thought it was important to rotate the roles. So he got a much less impressive role.
That's his villain origin.
Maybe. So he was cast as the innkeeper, but his nose was severely put out of joint because of this. And some other terrible kid was cast as Joseph. And on the day of the nativity performance, right? This is genius. This is genius. The parents are watching the show. The show's going ahead. Joseph and Mary are walking with their donkey to Bethlehem, and they knock on the innkeeper's door. The innkeeper opens the door, and Mary says, "Oh, innkeeper, would you please be able to give us a place to stay on this night of nights?" And the innkeeper looked at Mary and looked at Joseph, and he says to Mary, "Mary, you can come in, but Joseph has to fuck off." So he was rewriting the nativity.
Did he really say that?
Yes. Yes.
The teacher would have been fuming.
So imagine the planning that he had in place from when he wasn't cast, because a couple of weeks in rehearsals where he went, "No, I'm going to change it on the night. I'm going to rewrite the show on the night."
That would be me. I would have done that.
Love it.
Jonathan Rhys Meyers' brother was in my class, Paul O'Keefe, and Paul was cast as Mary, and Mary was the biggest part. Mary had so much going on, and we must have been 8.
Right.
And now when I think back, how was he able to memorize all that fucking dialogue and put on that entire show? It must have ran in the family. Where do you think I was cast?
I'm going to say I'm going to go, were you a shepherd?
No, that's too high profile for me. I was the chorus. I was standing in the back with the rest of the class who'd basically come on to do a guard of honor and maybe sing some hymns. I can't even remember.
Well,
what I do remember is the disconnect of being on stage, the lights are on you, and you can't see any of the audience. The audience are all in darkness, and we're performing away, and I'm messing about, and I jumped down off the fucking course, and I was hiding behind everybody else.
Kevin, it's not like you to be messing about and pulling focus.
I thought no one could see me. No one could see me. And then, of course, when my part was over, I went into the audience, and I was looking up and thinking, fucking hell, you can see everything. I thought no one could see me. I was like an ostrich. If I can't see them, they can't see me. But yeah, funny. That was my only time on stage.
Well, listen, I could pull a few strings and get you in the next Legany play. If you're interested, Kevin, if you're interested.
I also was an extra. I told you this before. I know I did. I was an extra in a short film, and I was one of the production runners on it. And I had to stand in the back during a hospital scene, and one of the actors from East End was another actor was from Spaced, and they were having a sort of a tumultuous scene in the corridor, and I was at the back supposedly talking to a doctor. And when I saw the short film, and this is where I came up with this theory, which is there are certain people can only be extras, because extras are meant to be they're meant to be nondescript, inconspicuous, bland. They're meant to just blend into the background.
Yeah.
They're there as like decoration, but they're not meant to. You're not meant to notice them. And I was like,
somebody tells me Kevin is going to pull focus in the story. Go on, tell me what happened.
So I was like that woman in Doctor Strange 2, or is it the first Doctor Strange, where she's sitting behind Benedict Cumberbatch at a funeral or a wedding, and she's like looking around, going like,
That's right. She's overly gesticulating, yeah.
And so I'm supposedly having one of these, like, what is it that you said you're supposed to say if you're sitting in the scene? It's like
strawberries.
So I'm supposed to be having a silent conversation with this doctor, and they're having a real fucking blowout argument.
Yeah.
And so what I do is I turn and look and be like, what's going on there? Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Because I thought I'm in character, like, so if somebody's having an argument, I'm going to look. But of course, when you're watching a short film and a background extra looks towards where the camera is, where people are acting, your focus immediately goes to them.
Yeah.
So also, I was like gorgeous, so I just couldn't like take my eyes off myself.
That was it. Come on, let's talk about what we've been watching so we can get on and put our turkey in the oven.
Yeah. Turkey, was it turkey and the bone roll, whatever the fuck.
A leg roll.
Was it? No, do you not have those turkeys where it's like it's a boneless, it's all like wrapped
rolls,
in?
I don't know what they call it. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. We usually get those, the rolled up one, the thingy thing.
Yeah. Although to be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of turkey. I don't like it.
I like it after those days after Christmas when you're making turkey sandwiches. It's nice.
Yeah, but you have to have loads of condiments to make it palatable for me.
Growing up, I remember the turkey. I remember the leftover turkey just sitting there and just cutting slices off and just putting it on white bread and a bit of salt, and I was away.
I also don't like pheasant. Have you ever had pheasant?
Not a dead one.
All right. What are you doing with pheasants if they're alive? Okay, listen.
Yeah.
I'm desperate to hear what you thought of this film. It's obviously a screener.
Oh, yeah. Everything I've seen are screeners. So what are we talking about?
Tell us about Nosferatu.
Many bits.